where he's been since 2014. And his incoming is Dr. Brian Yearwood. Peter got his PhD from Mills College in Oakland, California. And as I mentioned, he's been with the school district in a number of different positions for 16 years. Dr. Yearwood hails from Texas, a community near Austin, where he's been the chief operating officer in the Manor School District. He's been in education for 30 years in a number of different positions as professor, assistant superintendent. And his PhD, I think, was from Texas Tech, but he originally hails from Trinidad and Tobago and actually made it as a tennis player to Wimbledon. So tennis enthusiasts, we have a role model there. Anyway, thank you for coming today. We're really excited to hear you.
Thank you for having us. I wonder, is it Pam or Alice? May I have access to share my screen? While you're doing that, I would tell you that Dr. Miller-Welly, what a great speech yesterday. Thank you so much for making yesterday's presentation so much more meaningful. We really enjoyed, but found incredibly moving your words yesterday at the James T. Scott ceremony.
Oh, thank you very much,
really appreciate it.
And we really appreciate your presence at the event.
Well, both Dr. Yearwood and I were able to afterwards have some meaningful conversations, which I know will never end because they're too important to have, but in terms of just race in our community, race, class, and certainly the things that are important to the Muleskinners. I heard you talking about House Bill 952. I heard you, and I have to tell you, I'm getting so many angry emails from constituents about the 1619 project. So any support that the Muleskinners can continue to provide the public schools would be appreciated. My response has been to date and will continue to be that in 1619, when the White Lion arrived on the shores at Point Comfort, that at no time did those steering the ship believe that Black lives mattered. And what we have approved for our teachers is the opportunity for them to access at the Pulitzer Center primary source material from the 1619 project. And the board approved that a couple of months ago. The MOU is supposed to go in front of the board soon, and no doubt we will receive quite a bit of opposition to that. So any support from the Muleskinners is really appreciated. And then additionally, I did not see as I popped on, Senate Bill 55, which would authorize the expansion of charter schools and vouchers. If you're going to be contacting our local delegation, please speak in opposition to that. I feel comfortable giving you that sort of position from a superintendent using district Wi-Fi right now, because the board has actually taken legislative action opposing vouchers in charter schools. So as their representative, I feel comfortable saying that while on the taxpayer dime at the moment. But what it would do for Columbia in particular would be devastating. And Dr. Yearwood, experiencing charter schools in Texas, has firsthand knowledge of what that would mean. But here's the thing that's very problematic for us as a school district is that our local delegate, our local senator, Senator Rowden, knows that the senators in Springfield oppose Senate Bill 55. And so in an effort to still pass this legislation, he's trying to make deals that would only expand charter schools and vouchers in Boone County. So the language has now gotten so extreme that even those in Greene County in Southwest Missouri that might possibly be in favor of charters oppose it. And there was a filibuster on Senate Bill 55, not by the opposition, but by those who are proponents, because they didn't have the votes as Senator Rowden moved around the room trying to make a deal. And one of those deals included, well, what if we just did it in Boone County? So never has it been more important. So I mention that because, and thank you for giving me access to the screen. I say progress doesn't stop here. There's so much that I want to share with you in terms of what I'm proud of over the last 7 years as your superintendent. But we cannot become complacent at all. Right now, public education in particular is under attack. So I am mindful of the time. I know you go to 1:15, but Dr. Yearwood and I have to run at 1. And I know you'll have questions for him and would love to hear from him. So I'm planning, if it's all right, Alice, as our master of ceremonies, is it okay if I take about 20 minutes and sort of just talk through some of the things I'm proud of?
That's excellent. That's perfect. Thank you,
Perfect.
Peter.
You bet. So I've sort of put this into a top 5 initially, which is sort of like the top 5 things I'm most proud of as a superintendent, having now been in the school district for 16 years. And so if we were all in person, I'd ask you to go number 5, but obviously you're just watching from home. So, but the number 5 is I continue to be so incredibly honored by the fact that our community regularly supports its public schools when it comes to bonds and levies. And as you know, we have 10-year plans that we build for facilities and bonds. Dr. Yearwood and I were meeting with Bond Council to talk about the next elementary school and the one after that. And then at what point will we build a new high school, and where would we build it, and how do we plan for the future and our future growth? But none of this is possible without the support of our community. And I was a superintendent for 4 elections, and all of them successful because of our community. As you know, our challenge will continue to be growth. Our challenge will continue to be taking buildings that were never built for the era we're in, where it appears that anyone who wants to have a gun can get one. And so we continue to work hard to ensure safety and security in our buildings. And then thirdly, former Senator and Representative Chuck Graham met with us and said something public at a board meeting, which was hard to hear but important, which was that while we might be compliant when it comes to ADA, our buildings are not fully accessible. And so we began meeting with his organization, the Great Plains Group, and we actually hired an individual on staff who is our ADA specialist. And we have been building into our plans, our most recent was this last bond that passed, to make sure that we are not just compliant, but actually accessible. And the big project that you'll start seeing over at Jeff Middle School is a 4-story elevator, because we have re-envisioned our oldest, most iconic structure, maybe save for Hickman High School, but I think Jeff Jr. folks would say Jeff, in our portfolio. And it was completely inaccessible, and yet it is our most innovative school right now as a STEM and arts middle school. And so we want to make sure that every child and every adult who enters that building can access it. And so we're making those same kind of commitments throughout the district. When I first became involved in the school district, we had, I'm now the host apparently too, so I'm gonna let in Ruth, everyone. When I became superintendent, we had 173 trailers in the Columbia Public Schools, right? It was about the only way we could manage growth. And so we were number 1, right? Number 1 in trailers. We want to be number 1 in something, but maybe not trailers. So, so David Mallory, thank you for laughing at a terrible joke. So, and so now in 2020, when we opened up John Warner Middle School, we're at about 20, which is functionally 0, which is really pretty exciting. And so we've shared with Dr. Yearwood the plan that Dr. Ritter started, Dr. Belcher continued, and that I got to be the recipient of a grand vision. Okay, number 4 is our early college program. And so a group of us went with the Chamber of Commerce to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and in Washtenaw County, Michigan, juniors and seniors in high school were eligible to go to college, but have all rights and privileges as high school students. And so as we were returning, our community said, we need to do that here in Columbia. And really, we were all in and thrilled to do it. Truly, if it had not been for Jeff Lashley at Moberly Area Community College, it wouldn't have happened. And so now we have juniors and seniors. This was our first year this year. We had hoped maybe we would have 50 students or 50 children enroll. We had over 150. And so our kids are able to get their associate's degree so they can go to MACC for their junior and senior year. They're concurrently enrolled. They finish up their high school diploma as well as their associate's degree, and then can enter college debt-free as juniors in college. And so we just think it's a game changer for our kids. Super excited about that opportunity for our children, and happy to answer any other questions you might have about it in a few minutes. So number 3 that I'm most proud of is our CPS Japan connection in Hakusan. And as you might remember, Hakusan, Japan, which was what at one point called Mato, the city of Mato, is our sister city for more than 30 years. And after 9/11, that relationship sort of ended because of complications with travel and things like that. But a few years ago, we went back. And so some of the community members you see on the screen, Mike Sidlowski in the center there, our science coordinator, Jonathan Sessions, who was our vice president of the board at the time, Susan Hart, who is a business leader here in our community. And this guy all the way on the right actually is from Columbia. If you know Lori Henderson, a dentist here in town, that's her son. And he went to Rockbridge High School, studied Japanese, and has been living in Japan for a number of years, and was our guide when we were there. And so the goal is to begin bringing students in the summer to Hakusan. If you see the school here on the right side, it is they took a hotel and they renovated it and turned it into the International College of Technology, which students attend for a 5-year program and then go into the workforce. And so we want to start bringing our own students. And we were supposed to bring 20 this past summer, although it was canceled because of COVID. So we look forward to bringing students in the near future. And it all started because of our relationship with MU. And we brought students to Nagano, Japan. We were the only high school in the English-speaking world who was invited to the Nagano Prefecture Summer Festival. Every summer, a different prefecture has a summer festival. And they wanted us to bring something quintessentially American. So initially we thought maybe a jazz band, but that's a combo group of about maybe 5 kids. And instead, what is quintessentially American? A drum line. And so we brought our kids from every one of our high schools. They trained all year. They attended lots of competitions, and then they performed. This is the opening ceremony parade, but they performed. And had it not been for Sang Kim and Amanda Carr from the Asian Affairs on campus, we never would have been invited. And it just sort of kicked off our relationship with Japan. So I've promised Dr. Yearwood he gets to go to Japan because it really matters that the superintendent comes. Okay, number 2, this is super exciting. And, I'm keeping track of who's here because I'll be hitting you all up for donations to the nature school. So a number of years ago in 2013, we had wanted to create a nature school after seeing one in Springfield. There is something called the Wolf School inside a Bass Pro Shop, and 50 kids are entitled to go all year long to the nature school there, or the Wolf School. But we wanted to create something better. And so we created, and we're so close, we're about 70% funded at this point, a Boone County Nature School that would allow every child in Boone County, but particularly every 5th grader in Boone County. So public schools, parochial schools, private schools, homeschool, and taking advantage of an incredible donation by Vicki Russell and Hank Waters in partnership with the Missouri Department of Conservation and our public schools. And so you can see what the nature school, that's what our design looks like. It's been approved by the county, so we're getting ready to build. And really what I want to share with you is what it looks like. So here is the campus. Oh, by the way, if you see on the upper left there, you see that child with like her mouth open. That's what I want for every kid, is to be so excited about being out in nature, right? I do think that she actually saw there was like a raccoon carcass on the trail. I clipped it, but still, I want her to be really excited about the public schools and a kid's opportunity. As you're probably familiar, we send about 800 children to the Grand Tetons every summer. We send about 400 children every fall to the Great Smoky Mountains. No child is ever turned away. If a child wants to go and doesn't have the funds, we raise the funds for them. But what we wanted to do is create something for all 5th graders in Boone County. And so this is the property. It butts up against Three Creeks Conservation Area. It is where Hank and Vicki had their home, and they have donated to a little over 200 acres to the Missouri Department of Conservation, for which they've given us 10 acres to build a nature school. And so the Three Creeks Conservation Area is right there. And they've already built all the trails. They have built a pavilion. There are elderberry patches there. So it's our goal to teach our children about local foods. wherein we have a position, a food nutrition educator that's half paid for by the county and half paid for by the school district, that works really closely with Adam Saunders and Max and their crew at the Urban Agriculture Group. And so our kids are going to be planting a food forest and taking advantage of what's already there. But this is what we're talking about, is putting a school building right there, a nature school. And $2 million are coming from the public schools, $1 million coming from the Missouri Department of Conservation. Barry Orscheln has made a significant donation. The Columbia Public School Foundation has invested in the school. And we're almost there, but costs have gone up because of the pandemic. And so we're looking for just a little bit more help. Okay, and then the number one thing I'm most excited about from having been your superintendent is our Como Ed program. And I'm really thrilled because, as Dr. Yearwood and I have talked about it, I think he's poised to make this a national model for the school district to be incredibly proud. It is certainly one of the reasons why I was recently honored as the Missouri Superintendent of the Year, because we created a program. You know, it was, I really credit Mr. Witt. Jim Witt was a board member at the time, and he continued to say to me, we need to diversify our teaching force. We have some real gaps in terms of who our children, 40% of our children identify as children of color, but only 14% of our professionals identify as educators of color. And really, when you talk about teachers, it's about 7%. And so we wanted to create a pipeline to recruit highly educated, highly effective teachers of color. And so we created our Como Ed program. It's really a grow your own model. So high school students work for us in the summertime as teachers' aides. And then after 2 summers, if they're interested in becoming teachers in our school district, either Stevens, Central Methodist, Columbia College, or the University of Missouri will grant them a full scholarship, room and board included. It's incredible. So Diane Lynch, Scott Dalrymple at the time, Catherine Cheval at the time, but certainly President Choi, they've all been so supportive. And President Russell right now at Columbia College said it's a blood oath. I said during the pandemic, we won't take a blood oath, but we will certainly take his word for his continued enthusiasm for our program. And so our first cohort is graduating tomorrow at Columbia College. So I'll be going to graduation because we started this 5 years ago, and the commitment is there. So our kids, and MBS Books, which is here in town, provides all their books for free. So we raise some donation money so that we can make sure that they can decorate their dorms, have some spending money to go to the movies and things like that, because it's one thing to be on campus, but it's another thing to actually enjoy all the rights and privileges as a college student. So I'm super proud of those top 5 things. And so I will quickly go through just a few other things here that I'm just super excited about, and I'm keeping track of the time. So for one, and this is where we say progress doesn't stop here, because Dr. Yearwood, this is an area that he's already identified as an area for us to continue to improve. But one of the things that the school district, under the leadership of Carla London, was to really begin moving beyond just reading about social justice or thinking about social justice or opting in if you want to, because typically the only people who opt in is already the choir that believes in the work. And so Carla's leadership was to engage us with the NCCJ St. Louis, which is an organization that really has the ability to challenge through their modules and through their training. So we have about 80 facilitators now, to think about how each one of us has been socialized, the jokes that we heard as kids, the churches we may have attended, our experiences all form who we are, and to move towards a cycle of liberation, to really begin to understand how each of us sees the world differently, and as a path towards reconciliation, everything from race to class to gender, sexual orientation, religion, ability. I'm so glad to see the Muleskinners taking a stand on our children in terms of our trans children. It is so incredibly disrespectful what the legislature is proposing to do. And also, as part of our work, is to engage in restorative practices, additional tools for when the world has been broken, to work towards mending that world. 2 areas that will not get a lot of attention from the community because they're not so sexy, but our work around standards reference grading having a scope and a sequence to the work that we do that is unified and aligned pre-K all the way through 12th grade and from building to building. And I'll give you an example of why that's important. With 30% of our kids moving schools throughout the school year, right? Our mobility rate is about a little over 30%. So 1 in 3 kids will start at one school and end at another school. And what a disservice it is to children if we prioritize what adults want to teach and when they want to teach it, as opposed to what is it that we have identified as our most essential skills for children to learn, and then teaching them not how, because their teachers are professionals and they have creativity and the ability and the autonomy to teach. But when we teach things should be aligned on a certain calendar so that our children are not at a disservice, particularly those who already have been uprooted from their home schools. And then when children do struggle, whether with academics or behavior, how do we intervene and support children? We know with reading, things have not been so bad in terms of the pandemic. Pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, our reading data is fairly stable. But mathematics, we're seeing a real shift. And some of the theory out there is that families felt more comfortable being able to teach reading and read with their children. But when it comes to mathematics, that's been a challenge. So how do we intervene now as we return from a pandemic to something a little bit more normal, and then support children who have been struggling? And then, for the school district to receive a national award for its equity work from the National School Board Association was a real highlight for me. John Wright, who has always been a champion for all of us, we mourn every day when he was unsuccessful in when Chuck Basie beat him, but he helped me start a Montessori at Grant School, so that 20 children, 10 who pay tuition, the other 10 do not. Many of them live in public housing, and giving them our kids in our community just the very best opportunity for an early child experience. And so this is at Grant Elementary School. So we operate 27 preschools in our school district, super proud of that work and knowing that there's interest in expanding it. We have a wait list of more than 200 children, so we know it's important. Taking, as I mentioned, our Jefferson STEAM to turn our oldest building into a STEM and arts middle school. In fact, Greg Kane, the principal there, complained to me that the other middle schools are now trying to, take some of their innovative practices, and now how will he still be special? And I go, that's the point. You're the innovative school. Let's make all of our middle schools and offer voice and choice for kids. So now there are courses like zombie apocalypse for middle schoolers, which sounds horrible to me. Although for our kids, attendance has never been better, behaviors have never been better, and kids are absolutely engaged in these STEM and arts electives at the beginning of each school day. They also have chickens, and they're doing mural painting and jewelry and marketing and a journalism class, and it's just amazing all the wonderful things that they're doing over at Jeff. And we wouldn't have been able to do that had we not had technology, particularly in this pandemic. Every child had access to technology, including hotspots if they needed it. We did a ton of work around building an online curriculum. Our teachers were amazing this year, and I'm super proud of them for that. We continue to be innovative, and because of the Columbia Public School Foundation, we were able to create courses like an entrepreneur class and algebra class that is principles of algebra, but also a business class where the students are creating their own t-shirt factory. There's nothing like colleges and high schools where there are so many clubs, they all need t-shirts. Or our geometry and construction class that allows our students on A days to build a tiny home. Oh, sorry, Councilman Scala, auxiliary dwelling, right? Because we can't call them tiny homes here in Columbia, is that right? So they're building these auxiliary dwellings, and on A days they do geometry, B days they're building, and then it's a partnership that we have with the Columbia Central Missouri Community Action to donate a house to a family in need. And so it's just an amazing program. Our kids have done a tremendous work in terms of learning these skills, but also what it means to be human. One child was asked, it was January, who was building this house, and someone said, "Isn't it cold out here?" And she said, "Yeah, it's cold, but that's because, I'm building it now so that a family next January is not cold." So, I mean, it's just amazing. And then our partnership with MACC goes well beyond our early college program with our allied health and surgical tech programs, really trying to meet the needs of our community, knowing that that there's a nursing need and a nursing shortage. And so we have a program and a relationship with them. And then continuing to use national curriculum like the Project Lead the Way so that our kids have access to high rigor and high leverage courses that will only benefit them as they move on to college. And then lastly, I'm super proud of the fact that as a superintendent and having been the principal at West Boulevard, I wanted to make sure that every kid in public schools at every grade level had something that they could look forward to, some type of enrichment program or event that they knew that in that grade they would do it. And so in first grade, all of our kids go to our planetarium. I don't even know if I've shown you our planetarium yet, Dr. Yearwood. We have a full operating planetarium because of Dr. Shaw, who was one of our superintendents. We have all of our second graders go to the Audubon Nature Sanctuary and learn about birds. All of our third graders go to the Missouri Symphony and they learn about the orchestra and it's like the Leonard Bernstein Building the Orchestra program. And so they hear Peter and the Wolf as a part of that. All of our fourth graders go on the Missouri River and they learn about the watershed, but also about why the river was important, but its historical significance too, as Lewis and Clark crossed it. All of our fifth graders go to J.A. Biztown to learn how government works, how cities operate, and how small businesses operate, how communities work. Our nature school will be for all of our fifth graders as well. Our Smoky Mountain trip I told you about and our Teton trip I told you about, which is super exciting. All of our sixth graders or seventh graders go on an overnight camping trip, depending on which middle school they attend. All of our seventh graders participate in the African American Heritage Trail. This is super important. We want our kids to know of the trials, the tribulations, the sacrifices and successes of our African American community. It's really important as we understand our past to better inform our future. And then our eighth graders will begin going to Arrow Rock Lyceum Theater this coming year. They were supposed to go this year, but the pandemic. But they will all see a musical and understand Arrow Rock's importance in mid-Missouri. All of our ninth graders go to the White House Decision Center in Independence. And they don't just, it is a culmination of their social studies and civics unit. Sometimes we're asked, do we teach civics? Yes, every ninth grader is enrolled in civics, and every ninth grader in the Columbia Public Schools becomes a part of Truman's cabinet, a different role. And then they have to kind of decide what they're going to do because Stalin is trying to squeeze out the Allies out of West Berlin. And so, from West Germany, that supply line is being cut off. And so they have to make some decisions, and they each are playing a role and answering it based on what information they have. And they have to respond to questions from the press. It's pretty impressive. And then every 10th grader goes to True False. And we're super excited about that as well. And that I know started because of the Columbia Public School Foundation as well. They invested in our kids to be able to take advantage of an amazing festival here in our community. And they also have access to directors and producers. And it is well beyond just going to see a documentary film. And then our 11th graders, this is probably where they're not so excited, but we pay for your ACT. You're welcome. You get to take a test. But it could be the difference, and maybe things will change with the pandemic where ACT and high stakes testing won't be as high of importance as it has been. But it certainly has played a major role in whether or not students or children are entitled to scholarships or what schools they might be, they now recognize that they can go to. And then lastly, you talked about transgender students. I'm really proud of the fact that as superintendent, we adopted new language to our anti-discrimination policy that included language that is not protected by the state of Missouri, but is protected by the school district, which is to include gender identity and gender expression, including sexual orientation as well. And so as a school district, as a community, we should be proud of that. And then I was a part of legislation that did pass that allows for individuals who are in the workforce, in business, or who have professional careers but don't have teaching degrees, the ability to have one-year credentials to be able to work in our schools. And so it's called the Visiting Scholar Program. So I think that's about it. I have just a couple where we make sure that kids in the evening have access to meals because we know that kids go home and they may not eat until the next day. And so we started a program that we saw in Gainesville, Florida, so that kids, regardless of if they're on free or reduced lunch or not, they may be going to work, they may be going to play football, they may be going to their debate team meeting, they may just be going home, but every high school kid can grab a sack supper. When kids are suspended, but we don't want them to just be sitting at home, we created the Alternative Center for Education at the Boys and Girls Club. And then we created a Family Welcome Center because of the Public School Foundation that allows us to separate the very personal side for families of if they're homeless or they're new to our country because they've been displaced and they're a refugee. and separating that from the contractors here for the bid opening. You know, people have to talk about their most personal pieces of their family, and they can do that in a dignified way. And then lastly, as you know, we added an equity department headed up by Carla London. And we were one of the first in the state to do it. Lots of states and school districts around the country are seeing that not just should they have an individual who does equity, but it's somebody who sits on the cabinet and has a voice and action and a budget to make change. And that includes our MOCA and WOCA program. And then lastly, well, this is not that exciting for you, but it is for me. We had every department and every school was sort of accountable for their data in their own way. And so we created a department called AID, Assessment, Intervention, and Data. I tried to come up with one that was NERD, but I couldn't come up with an acronym that worked. So AID it is. So that's it. I am sorry I took more than 20 minutes, but it's 7 years and 20 minutes. So I talked quickly, but I'm super proud of what we've accomplished in 7 years as your superintendent. So, oh, thanks. Now I turned off my screen so I got to see you. So you might have questions for me, but I really think you have questions for Dr. Yearwood. I'd love for him to unmute himself with your permission and let him introduce himself. Go to it, Brian.
Okay, all right, there we go. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Dr. Brian Yearwood. I come to you from Maynard, Texas, after being in education for 30 years. Very excited. I've been here for the past 2 weeks, and number one experience that I have, I must talk about is the friendliness of the individuals in our community. I've had several things happen where it was very clear that they're very caring individuals in Columbia, Missouri, and it continues to affirm me that I'm in the right place. I came to Columbia as a superintendent because of the similarities that I've experienced. I spent 32 years in a place called Lubbock, Texas, home of Texas Tech University. I was in a tennis scholarship there, traveling from the Caribbean, and had the opportunity to go through the school system there in terms of teaching, assistant principal, and there were very strong parallels to Columbia. Texas Tech had 40,000 students. Here in Columbia, there are approximately 35. And we also had very similarities in terms of the innovation that exists here. A bit of who I am. I've been a teacher, a science teacher for many years, loved it, assistant principal, assistant superintendent for academics, where my current district 6 years ago when I arrived was an F-rated district according to the state state assessments. We are now a B district. Coming into Columbia, Columbia is a very progressive district, lots of programs, lots of innovation. And for me, that's what education is all about. No longer can we just prepare our scholars for graduation. We must prepare our scholars to think innovatively and prepare for the innovation that's up ahead. One question that I asked, 10 years ago, would you get into a car with a stranger, someone you didn't know, to take you across town in different hours of the night? The answer to that, more than likely, no. Or would you ask a stranger to bring food to your home that you have no idea who they are and what they're capable of? 10 years ago, no. Today we do that. That innovation did not exist 10 years ago. Today, we have to think ahead. We have to encourage our scholars to be able to think of the possibilities, not the impossibilities 10 years from now. I was very moved yesterday as I attended the James T. Scott memorial that I was invited to with Dr. Stipelman. And to me, that again continues to affirm the move, the vision, the passion in Columbia to be able to start looking at the hard issues. One of which, of course, is racism and systemic racism that exists, and be able to move towards recognizing and stamping that out. Because many times individuals sit back who are, very nice, and they say, I'm colorblind, I don't see color, I treat everyone the same. And the challenge is, don't be just colorblind, be color brave. make sure that you continue to not just say, I don't see anyone, but I do see there are differences and I'll do my part. The reason that I say that is because as we look at our school district, there are opportunities here. There are opportunities for our students of color, and being able to make sure that all, when I say all, doesn't matter what color you are, whether you're a student of color, whether you're white, it doesn't matter. That when you come through our halls, when you come through our schools, our scholars have the best experience possible so that they can matriculate and go on into a world where they too can become innovative. That's why I'm here, for all students of Columbia Public Schools. And my number one priority are scholars first. I told Peter I'll walk through over burning embers, barefooted, to ensure that all scholars have a quality experience or continue to have a quality experience within our schools. And the great work has started with Dr. Stipelman. Hats off to him. I will be following a great leader. Thank you.
Alice or Pam, I'm not sure how you handle questions, but happy to answer any that if there's a protocol for Muleskinners virtual.
Yeah, we probably have time for just a couple questions. Who would like to raise their hand? Looks like Herb Tillema.
Very much for
Just a
coming.
minute, I'm trying to, you're okay.
Mr. Yearwood, thank you very much for coming to Columbia. We as also Texas exiles are particularly appreciative. I know as a science teacher, you probably aren't asked this very much, but one of the glaring issues in American education generally is that we lag behind much of the rest of the leading world in mathematics, education, and instruction. China, for example, perhaps 2 years ahead. Would you have any ideas about what you might help to bring in addition to the great things that have been done in the last few years in this and other areas?
Yes, sir. One of the areas, the work has already started. We must look at raising the bar for all of our scholars and raising the levels of expectation and ensuring that there's a high level of rigor within our curriculum. And our curriculum has to be seamless, kindergarten through 12th grade, culminating in not just our scholars graduating, but being able to master ACT, SATs, where that becomes no problem. What I compared, because I did look at some of the studies that have been done with countries like China and countries like here in America, one issue is that the beauty about schools here in America is we take all scholars, regardless, whether you're special needs, whether you're gifted, it doesn't matter. Other countries, they don't do that. They basically select, or you have to qualify yourself to be a part of the school system. So really, we're comparing all of our scholars against their best scholars. But one thing I can tell you, because there are other studies that show when they start comparing our American scholars that are in university to their scholars that are in university, guess what? There's an equal playing field. No longer are they better in math and science than we are because of our preparation. I strongly believe that we do have a stronger system and we can improve because, again, education is evolving. And the expectation is to provide as many experiences as we can to bring about that innovation. So no longer are we sitting in classrooms and doing repetitive work and regurgitation work to pass a test, but to actually look at application of knowledge and teaching our scholars how to become true lifelong learners so that we can continue to elevate our society. I hope I got some of my answers to you, Mr. Tillema. I hope I answered some of it, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, do we have one more question? Carl Scala?
Yeah, Dr. Stipelman, I just wanted to just a point of correction. It's a accessory dwelling unit.
I called. I'll stop calling them auxiliary. Sorry, accessory.
But thank you for all of your work for the past 16 years. It's been terrific. And Dr. Yearwood, I just wanted to, I'm always interested in intergovernmental cooperation, and serving on the city council for a long time. We're always interested in growth. That's a 900-pound gorilla, and so is the school district. And the sharing of infrastructure and how we get along together. I was just curious as to your views on some of that intergovernmental cooperation and how we might continue this great work that's been started by Dr. Stipelman.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for asking about that. Communication and interaction with our city government is key. I know that we attend several meetings within the city, city council, city commissioners. I've even had the opportunity to meet with our mayor. Back in Texas, the city and our school district were in contention before I got there. Now we work collaboratively. By saying that, we actually have a meeting set up. As a matter of fact, we meet next Thursday to talk about the plans that our capital projects that we have that are ahead. How can we build as we build within the school district? How can we look at that to complement what's happening within our city? One major idea as the governmental entities try to promote small businesses. As a school district, we should be tapping into our local talent through, again, utilizing the city of the companies that have been vetted through our city and working together to build these infrastructures, build these schools, focusing on bringing in our local talent. That's a piece of what we'd be looking for. But the collaboration must happen, and it can't be just talking, sir. We have to walk the talk. We have to meet. We have to plan together. We have to collaborate very, very much to build that relationship and carry it forward.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mari?
Yeah, I have a question harking back to I'm fascinated by the sort of dual degree program where kids get their high school diploma and their AA at the same time. And I'm just curious, do they take a full load of both sets of classes, or how?
Yeah,
does it
great
work?
question, Mari. Yeah, so students have options. So our children have, if they want to enroll full-time at MACC for their junior and senior year, they can do that. So they can go in the morning and afternoon in their junior and senior year. The courses that they're taking are part of the Core 42. I think it's 42. It's like the number of credits that one needs, like your prerequisites for all of the colleges in the state of Missouri. So they finish their Core 42 in those 2 years, and that's what it allows them to then enroll right into their majors. Because even if Mizzou has a different set of prerequisites at UMKC than Truman than others, they all agree to accept the MACC Core 42 that they take in as high school students. And those classes have already been aligned to fulfill the high school requirement for graduation. So they don't have to double up. They don't have to take extra courses. They just start taking the Core 42. It corresponds with the courses they would have to take to graduate high school, and then they can just enter into their junior year. Now, what we're seeing is that more students are getting a year of college done as opposed to both years, because they want to go in the morning for college, and in the afternoon they want to take their elective courses. They still want to be in the choir. They still want to be in the orchestra. They still want to take the theater class. They still want to, go to, so those courses, so they can do that. But yet while they're concurrently enrolled, whether they go morning, afternoon, or just morning or just afternoon, they're still enrolled as high school students, so they can still be on the football team. They can still be on the soccer team. They can still, be in all the clubs, and so they have all rights and privileges as high school kids. It really is a game changer. So someone put in the chat about President Biden's speech. I'm really excited about the possibility for expanded early childhood education and opportunities for our kids in our community, because we have a wait list of more than 200 kids already. And we know that high quality preschool is super important for families if you're going to break cycles of poverty, no doubt. The other piece I'm not so sure about, for the 2 years after high school. So I would really encourage our new Secretary of Education to maybe look at these models like in Washtenaw County and now here in Boone County of what early college could mean. Our next step in this is to allow students to go to MACC and graduate with that industry recognized credential so they can just go right into the workforce, not necessarily to go into their junior year of a 4-year school, because not every kid needs to go to a 4-year college. What they need is to have a plan. And I've heard Dr. Yearwood really speak about this so beautifully, and I know he'll be back because you have lots of questions here about our gifted program and things like that. And so I think we'll collect some of these questions, and if you'll invite him back, I'll be gone, but I'm sure he'll come back. I'm sure of it. So, but we do have to run. I'm so sorry. We're at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Peter and Brian, for sharing with us today. It was very uplifting. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, Alice, I know that you and I are cut from a similar cloth from as being East Coast and culturally Jewish. So it was hard to say no to you. You kept coming, like, you can come do the Muleskinners. I'm not sure we're available. And boy, you got the right person to book talent. She was hard to turn down. So
Thank you both for visiting with us. Appreciate it. We look forward to having Dr. Yearwood back. All right.
Thank you.
take care, David. Bye, everyone.
Pam, did you?